Thank you, Jochen. Thanks to Swiss Resource Capital for putting this on. Much appreciated. And Invest Fair. This is really phenomenal. It's actually my first time to Invest Fair. I know Endeavour Silver has been here in the past. I was the CFO for 14 years with Endeavour, and I moved to the CEO position 3 years ago. So my nights of sleep have gotten less, that's for sure. But I'm very happy to get out and tell our story, because I think right now we have a phenomenal story that we can tell. I can tell Jochen spoke to silver and what's happening in the silver market. He spoke to the fundamentals of supply and demand, the growth that we're seeing from an industrial standpoint. That's great. Silver is also deemed to be a precious metal. And right now, in the last 4 to 5 years, silver has been trading as an industrial metal. I think the precious metal side is going to come, and we're going to make those new all-time highs. So for us as Endeavour, we've been around for about 18, 19 years. We've been a mid-tier silver producer. Our goal is to become a senior silver producer. So we think we have to produce about 25 million ounces of silver to be considered a senior silver producer, and we have a path to get there, and I'll be able to show you that today. 60% of our revenue comes from silver, 40% comes from gold. We have assets in Mexico. We're in the state of Durango and Guanajuato. We've been in Durango for 19 years and Guanajuato for 17 years. Phenomenal little spots to operate. Epithermal vein system, so we've never had more than 2 years of reserve life at our assets, but we've continued to replace our reserves when we mine through resource to reserve conversion, and then find new resources to continue to operate. So ultimately at Guanajuato, we're going to be there 25 years, hopefully Bolañitos 25 years, and now we have an asset coming that we have a 10-year reserve life, but again, we expect to be there 25 years. This year, we're going to produce about 5.5 million ounces of silver and 35,000 ounces of gold, so 9 million ounces of silver equivalent. Our cost profile, these assets are mature. So mature is a nice way of saying higher cost assets. We're deeper, we're pumping a lot of water. The key thing I want everyone to take away today about Endeavour Silver is with our new mine that's going to come online in 2025, we're going to almost double our production. So we're going to go from 8.5 million ounces of silver to 15.5 million ounces of silver. But most importantly, we're going to cut our cost profile in half. So we're going to go from all-in sustaining costs of $22 down to about $12, $13 for 2025. We do have assets up in United States, some exploration assets, and we are also in Chile, but we mainly focus on Mexico. Behind Terronera, that's going to take us up there, we have 2 exploration assets, the Pitarrilla asset and the Pitarrilla asset. Pitarrilla is one of the world's largest undeveloped silver deposits. We've defined over 600 million ounces of silver, plus there's zinc and lead, and that's in the state of Durango. So the Guanajuato mine, I'm going to quickly touch on our current operations, what we've done, what we've been doing. This mine produces 80% silver, 20% gold. Ultimately, like I say, it's epithermal vein system. We've been there 18 years, never had more than 2-year reserve life, yet we still mine from some of the discoveries we initially made in 2004, 2005. It's been pretty steady state lately. Last year in Q3 2023, our costs increased significantly. We've seen inflationary prices in the mining industry, so we've seen margins shrink, and also in Mexico, the peso appreciated significantly, about 15% last year. This impacted Guanajuato and it impacted us in Q3 of last year. Our cash flow shrunk. People were concerned. We came out of the GDX and we came out of the S&P TSX, so there was a lot of pressure on our stock. In our space, we were one of the worst performing stocks. I'm not trying to not sell the company here. I think it's just the reality of what we saw last year. So far this year, we've been one of the best performing stocks, and that's because we fixed our operational issues at Guanajuato very quickly, and we've hit our targets. Last year, we hit our guidance target. The year before, we beat our guidance target, and the year before that, we also beat our guidance target. So we've done extremely well at Guanajuato, but it is a higher cost mine. It's a higher cost mine because we have a royalty regime here with Mr. Slim, one of the wealthiest men in Mexico, controls a lot of Mexico. Our discovery in 2019, so as we replace reserves through resource and exploration, the El Curso mine is where we're mining about 80%, and that's right in the middle of the screen there. We'd historically mined the Porvenir Cuatro mine, the Porvenir Dos mine. We made a discovery south and deeper to the Porvenir Cuatro mine, and we're trying to connect Porvenir Cuatro to Porvenir Dos. So ultimately, our drilling there is this year. We expect that to connect, and we'll be here 5 to 7 years more. With the higher cost mines, there is great leverage to the increase in silver price. And I think Jochen did a good job explaining where we think silver price is going to go. And again, we're positioned extremely well at Guanaceví to take advantage of that. Our other mine, it's about 30% of our production is the Bolañitos mine. It's a gold mine producing about 2.5 million ounces silver equivalent of silver. Again, it's a steady state. We produce about 600,000 ounces of gold here. Epithermal vein system. Never had more than 2 years reserve life. Continue to replace our reserves while we mine it with exploration. Hopefully we're here another 4 to 5 years. With the higher gold price now, I think that's easily achievable. So our story, and again, if there's anything you want to take away, is we're going to cut our cost profile in half with the Terronera project. We announced this project in April of 2023. It's going to produce 7 million ounces of silver equivalent in its first 4 years, ultimately 6.5 to 7 million ounces over a 10-year reserve life. So we've already proven out a 10-year reserve life. We needed to do that to make the construction decision. We made that decision. It's a $270 million build. We expect to have that complete for Q4 2024 this year for commercial production in 2025. Again, one of the things about this project that make it so phenomenal is all the gold that's produced here is going to pay for the silver that we produce. So our all-in sustaining cost is effectively zero at today's prices over the life of the mine. Amongst our peer group, it's in the lowest quartile on a cash cost basis, in the lowest decile on an all-in sustaining cost basis. So our peer group of other primary silver mines, and that's about 30% of the world production comes from primary silver mines. Terronera will be one of the lowest cost producing mines from a silver standpoint. Our schedule, again, this 21-month construction period. We're going to be here until Q4 2024, our development team. Our development team's done an extremely good job to date. We're about 53% complete. We just announced that a couple days ago. We've spent about $155 million on the project to date, and we have $120 million left to go. We borrowed $120 million from 2 European banks. We drew on that money about 2 weeks ago, or 60 million of the 120 million, again for commissioning by the end of this year. Our seasoned team has done a great job building to date, which I've already said, but ultimately they came from building other mines around the world, and they've been able to stay on target and relatively on budget. In January of this year, we did announce that we increased our capital costs about $40 million. We explained that. That was the increase in the Mexican peso, about 15% last year. But most importantly, we're staying as productive as we expect it to be, and we'll be on time for the end of this year. Just some shots from Q1. We are setting our ball mill, and we have a ball mill, we have a SAG mill. We put those in place. All the vertical construction that we're doing at Terronera has gone extremely well. Expectations to be done by the end of Q3. Work in our tailings facility to date, and again, to be in production for the end of the year. Terronera itself is about 5.5 meters thick. It's shallow, and our highest grade materials at the base there, the magenta zone, right there. It's not that our resource and reserves cut off of 10 years. That's where we have inferred resources. We have about 3 years of inferred resources around the vein. Ultimately, we're going to develop right into the magenta zone, our high-grade zone, running about 500 grams silver equivalent, and we'll be drilling there to extend mine life. Because of the topography, and you probably saw on the very first page, the plant site where we're actually building, we won't be able to expand the production. We can't go from 2,000 tons per day to 3,000 tons per day. But what we can do is extend mine life. So we can be here 15, 20, 25 years. The Terronera vein itself is open along strike into depth. And the La Luz vein, which sits about, let's just go back here, which sits about 1 kilometer away from Terronera. It's a high-grade gold vein, about 10 grams of gold per ton. It's also open along strike into depth. It is in our mine plan for the first 2 years, but similarly to Terronera, we're going to develop into it, cross-cut, explore underneath and along strike, and again with the expectations that we can extend mine life. So we'll be in Terronera what we think 20, 25 years. We have 20,000 hectares that we can control. We've had identified over 50 veins. 5 of those have been tested, and we put out results in 2021 with mineralization over 400 grams silver equivalent. Again, once we get this into operation, we'll go back to those veins, drill it out, build resources, extend mine life. So a real compelling story. And most importantly, again, Terronera is going to be a low-cost producing asset. It's going to cut our cost profile in half. Cash flows from our existing assets, about $25 million a year at today's prices at Guanaceví. Bolañitos does about $10 million of after-tax cash flow. Terronera at today's prices will do $85 million of after-tax cash flow over the 10-year mine life. That's $85 million of after-tax cash flow at $27, $28 silver, $23, $2,400 gold. Where we expect silver to go, that will only increase, again, for a company that's got a market cap about $500 million US. I think it's a very compelling story once this gets into production. So that's our operations, and I said we're trying to become a senior silver producer. Senior silver producer needs to produce about 25 million ounces of silver subjectively. We have our existing assets. We have the Terronera asset, double our production, take us to 15 million ounces of silver production, and cut our cost profile in half. But we also have the Pitarrilla asset that we hope to be our next mine after it. Pitarrilla itself, as I said, is one of the world's largest undeveloped silver deposits. We picked this up 2 years ago from SSR Mining. They had built a company, a gold company in 7 different jurisdictions. They had made an original discovery here at Pitarrilla. They themselves defined and put out 2 feasibility studies on this project. One was an open pit feasibility study at $25 silver when silver was $50. It was an $800 million build for a NAV value of $1.2 million. Doing 30,000 tons per day and producing close to 20 million ounces per year. Prior to that, they looked at it from an underground standpoint. We know underground vein mining. We're going to look at it from an underground standpoint. When they looked at it in 2009, it was an asset that produced 7 to 8 million ounces of silver, plus zinc, plus lead. So that 8 million ounces of silver can take us from 15.5 million to 23.5 and get us right there close to being considered a senior silver producer. So we're extremely excited about this asset. It's also in Mexico. It's in one of the states that we operate, the state of Durango. The other thing that's been phenomenal about Pitarrilla is the other predecessor spent $145 million on this project. They put in a camp, they permitted a plant, they permitted underground mining. There's some work to be done around a tailings facility. We've started that, but the goal is to take our development team at Terronera, complete that build by the end of this year, send about 130 staff to Pitarrilla, start working on engineering and evaluation for this project to hopefully put it into construction or make a construction decision for 2026 and get this into production before the decade's out. So again, takes us from 15.5 million ounces in 2025 to potentially 23, 25 million ounces by the end of the year. Because of the scale of the project and the size, it would also be a low-cost producing asset similar to Terronera. So to wrap up, we are listed on the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange. We have phenomenal liquidity on the New York Stock Exchange. We trade about almost 5 million ounces of shares per day. We trade about 1 million ounces of shares per day on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We have very high beta to silver. So when silver moves 1%, we generally move 3%. That's a function of our revenue mix. So 60% of our revenue comes from silver, 40% comes from gold. Historically, a lot of people got into the Endeavour name because of the leverage to silver with our high-cost operations. We're going to double our production and cut that cost profile in half. So hopefully that beta slightly trades down, but ultimately, as prices go up, our margins are going to significantly increase from those operations. Current cash balance is around $35 million. Again, we've spent $155 million on building the Terronera mine. We have $120 million left to go. That's being funded through banks, so we are going to put debt on our balance sheet. But we are in great position to deliver that for the end of the year. So with that, and I know you guys got a lot of good presentations coming, I appreciate Jochen and Swiss Capital Resources for hosting Endeavour, and I thank you guys for taking your time tonight to hear what we had to say.